This video is going to run through sloshing and how to train your horse to slosh. Sloshing is another unique part of endurance, and it's where the crew hand up essentially bottles of water up to the rider out on course so that they can pour this water over the horse to cool them down whilst they're out on the loop. This is a trusty slush bottle. It is basically a comfort fabric softener bottle. It is 13 years old. I've had my set for quite some time, and it is an absolute sin if a crew member loses a slosh bottle, or even worse, a lid. Basically all you need is something that's got a really wide top so that the water flows out really freely and you get quite a large volume, if you want it, and a really easy handle to hold so you can grab it. Lots of people use kind of milk bottles. I think they're a little bit flimsy. There is a trend at the moment about using 2-litre water bottles and once they're done throwing them away. I really disagree with that. I think as a sport we should be going more towards reusable options and not using as much plastic. So these are the trusty slosh bottles. Let's get to using them. Start your moving handovers against a fence or a hedge, or if you don't have these things, just like the side of a barn, anything that is going to stop the horse moving over and lets you concentrate on the sloshing, and you can move into open space later. We practice each gait in both directions, so you're using both your left and your right hand to pick up the slosh. Make sure you've transferred your reins into one hand in plenty of time, and maybe practice riding with one rein before this. Have your hand out ready and keep your eyes ahead. Practice the pickup using your peripheral vision. Don't worry if you don't have crew to practice with. Place the slushes somewhere you can practice by yourself, like on the side of a fence, or if you've got jumping wings on the top of there, or even a bird table if you have one handy. So I've got 5 kind of slosh related tips. Number 1 tip is slosh everywhere. So a lot of people, you'll see that they only really slosh the neck. You want to be cooling some of the biggest muscles, and some of the biggest muscles are here on the bum. So make sure when you slosh you do half along the neck and half over the bum. The more water you can put on, the bigger surface area, the more rapidly the horse will cool. The other thing is, make sure your crew know how to set up a crew point. We'll go through that probably in another video, but you want to have some sloshes done before your horse reaches the bucket that it's going to drink out of, and then you want to stop sloshing when the horse starts drinking, because hydration is much more important. You want the horse to drink and feel comfortable and not be distracted by anything. If you have a horse that doesn't care about sloshing and will drink like a whole bucket without you stopping sloshing, fine. But I like to stop sloshing when the horse is drinking, and then I'll slosh again when I go away from the crew point. Another tip, especially if it's a hot day like this, our horses in the UK aren't used to this heat. And obviously the water that you're going to take out to put in your slosh bottles is in a car. And in this kind of weather, that car turns into a sauna, your water gets really hot and it's no longer effective at cooling your horse. So in the morning, have a cool box in your car that's full of ice cubes. And then at every crew point, make sure that the water containers you're filling up the slosh bottles with contain ice. I don't like to have ice in my slosh bottles because I don't want chunks flying out, and sometimes it's a bit too cold and it clogs up the nozzle. So have ice in the water containers that you're pouring into the slosh bottles, and make sure none of the cubes go into the bottle themselves. I hope that helps you a little bit with starting out how to train your horse to slosh. Don't worry, as a novice and for the first few years, you don't need to take a slosh at the canter, but I really believe in training your horse for your long-term goals. So if your long-term goals are FEI, where when you're on a last loop and you're in the top 5, you don't want to let up for a crew point, so you want to keep that pace going, you want to train to slosh at the canter. So depending on your goals, if you're a novice rider that wants to kind of go slowly up through the graded levels, then by all means, walk into your crew point, get used to grabbing the slosh bottle, walking towards the water, let your horse drink, and as you walk away, slosh again. But if your goals are to race, as long as it's safe, start from the very start of how you want your horse to behave, coming up to a crew point, in a crew point, and going away as it would in an FEI race. Qantas has never had a slosh bottle near him in his life, so we're going to go through the basics. We'll progress him slowly each step, and until he's comfortable with each step, we won't take it to the next level. So maybe we won't get water on him today, but we're just going to get him comfortable having the sloshes around him and handed up to him. The ultimate kind of golden chalice of crew ability, and I'm very lucky to have 2 crew that are exceptional at it, is to be able to, so about 100 meters away from the crew point, take 3 sloshes each with them and space themselves out about 50 meters each, hand up 1 slosh bottle to you, then run alongside the horse at the same pace, so usually about a 18-19 km/h canter, and then continually hand the slosh bottles up to you, and then you do that twice. So you get 6 sloshes on the horse and get them cooled down before you even reach into the crew point. But today we're going to start completely from scratch and see how we go. To start off with, we're just going to get Dan to kind of show him the slosh bottle and walk around him with it in the air, and just kind of get him used to him being close to us while passing things up. Okay, and then hold it up a little bit higher. Make sure you go both ways. Good boy. Alright. A lot of horses don't like the sloshes overhead, and that's understandable. So you can keep the slosh bottle at chest level, and as the horse's head goes past, lift it up to rider level, and this is usually how we slosh Tizzy. Once they get used to having the slosh bottle up in the air, we then kind of start passing the slosh bottle up to the rider and kind of getting it's got a little bit of water in it, so if I move it around, he can hear the kind of sloshing of the bottle, and just do that along his neck and behind him. Pass it up either side. Ideally you want a horse that will pick up a slosh bottle either way. Azid will only take a slosh bottle from the left. I've tried from the right, he literally shakes like a leaf. So you've just got to go with what your horse is used to and make sure your crew know which hand to go for. A top tip I would have is have your crew out in front of you and they lift the slosh bottle up. And if you've got kind of a unique bottle, you can see them, and then you would then go, yeah, I've seen you, with the hand that you're going to pick the slosh bottle from. It means you've already prepared the reins, so the reins are in the hand that you're going to go. It lets them know that you've seen them, it lets them know which hand you would like it to kind of be passed up to. Good boy, stand. We're going to keep doing the pass until he's more relaxed with that. We'll do it both sides. Good boy. Good boy. No, what is this? Good lad. Good boy. Good boy. Okay, I'm going to keep it and just start to move it around him. Good boy. Down. Good boy. Good lad. I'm just tilting it, getting him used to the sound of the water. I always wait for them to kind of settle down again before going again. And if they're particularly spooky, like Qantas has just been, you can get off and get someone to hold them and just, good boy, and just move the slosh bottle around, kind of get that noise. Once you've got them used to having kind of the slosh bottle above them and things, you can then start getting them used to walking up towards the crew and doing the handover. After that step, we'll see if he's okay with it, but after that step you'd then practice throwing the slosh bottle away. Sometimes that's the worst bit, it's kind of that when it lands on the floor, they're like, oh, spooking from that. So just take it really easy, get them really comfortable with you first, and it doesn't have to all be done in one day. You can do it over a number of weeks before your first competition. So we're going to try Qantas with kind of walking towards Dan. I'm going to take the slosh bottle from Dan and I'm going to give it back to him. If he's okay with that, we might try giving it a throwaway. So prepare your reins. You're about to see Q freak out about the handover. He really doesn't like the sound of the water in the bottle. We just took it back a few steps and repeated until he relaxed. A lot of horses, this is the bit they hate. They hate the water being poured on and the sound of it on the ground. So starting doing it from the floor is really good. Qantas doesn't mind this at all. He really doesn't like the slosh bottle being handed over to me and it being on his back. Good boy. Hey, well done. Good boy. One of my most controversial tips, and maybe not many riders will agree with this, but don't be afraid to slosh yourself. An overheated rider is an inefficient rider and a liability to your horse. So when it's weather like this and you've got slosh bottles at hand, and your crew will have a good laugh as well.